What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with vetted timestamps down below if you want to skip around, but we have a lot of clips to cover, so let's jump right in.
And then, there's a lot of theories, too, that there's more undersea than on land.
I will tell you this, and I was telling my buddy this. I have a friend who is close with the president, and they speak often, and he asked him about it. And his quote was this is what he told me the president said, was, "We have no idea what they are, but they're in the ocean."
I don't know what to feel about the story that you just told me. There's so many questions I have.
Off mic, I'll tell you the whole...
For sure.
We will, yeah.
Here's the problem. I feel like this man called the president on a Wednesday at 3 p.m. He answered and said this over an unclassified telephone line.
And from my friend, that is a very common occurrence with our president.
All right, so this is an interesting clip here. This is Jack Osbourne, the son of Ozzy Osbourne. That's right, the great legendary singer, artist, musician. Come on, Black Sabbath. Let's go here. Anyway, Jack Osbourne is really into paranormal. I think he has a couple shows. He's done, this is his thing. So he's on a podcast talking about these sorts of things, right? And he drops this little nugget here, right? That a friend of his spoke to the president, and the president told him, "We don't know what they are, but they're in the oceans," right? Alluding to the UFOs that are flying around, right? So what does that mean? Would the president say something like that? I think the interviewer pushing back a little bit, like, over an unclassified line, he's just saying this, which is a good point. Exactly. Totally agree with that. And then Jack Osbourne said, well, apparently that's a regular occurrence. Now, with Donald Trump, not going to say that's not possible, right? Like, that is possible. The question is, they're in the ocean. Does that still mean alien? No. They could be foreign adversary, but they're just coming out of submarines or something, whatever. If these are the UFOs that come out of the water, I guess, doesn't necessarily mean aliens. No. But again, that's where people go. That's what Jack Osbourne said. Is this true? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think this was actually said by the president to Jack Osbourne's friend, or is Jack Osbourne's friend playing, messing with him a little bit? And does it mean something anomalous? Does it mean aliens? Is that what the president is saying? If he said this at all, let me know what you think down in the comments. Let's go on to the next clip.
This is the turning point. We're at a crossroads now as to whether or not the public are going to be told the truth. I really admire Dr. Phil McGraw for the stand that he's been taking. I always admire David Grush for the stand that he's been taking and pushing for transparency, and I warmly endorse and support his efforts to try and get the White House to make some kind of a statement. I can't predict what happens next. I sincerely hope the president can see, I think, the political benefit as well as the economic and national benefit in revealing what he knows. If he chooses not to reveal what he's been told and what he's learned, then sadly that means that he has been cowed yet again, like all other presidents before him, by the national security state telling him that this is information that cannot be revealed. There is no good reason why the public can't be told the truth. The public should at least be told that there is a non-human intelligence engaging with the planet, if indeed that is the case, which I strongly believe it is. And if there is retrieved technology that needs to be national security protected, the government can just say that. But I think it's time for the public to be told the truth. And I think that what David's done is just a long line of people, a whole series of people have stuck their necks out in recent weeks because they realise that this is a turning point. This is a crossroads at the moment where, frankly, the president's heading into the midterm elections, and after those midterms, he may be less powerful than he was before if the House and the Senate go the way some people are predicting. And I think there's an opportunity here for the first time in a long, long time in history for a president to actually do something definitive on the biggest secret in human history.
All right, and make sure to stay tuned later in the video because I've got another Ross Coulthart clip you're going to want to hear. But let's focus on this one. So this essentially, to me, is just a plea to President Trump, right? Trump's power is finite, right? And they know this, and they put a lot of effort into getting Trump to do some things right behind the scenes for disclosure, UAP disclosure, and essentially time is running out. And they've got to do this now because once a new administration comes in, you essentially almost feel like you're going to be starting over, right? Can some things carry over? Sure. But that's essentially it. That's what's happening right now. So that's why you're seeing a lot of whistleblowers make all these statements, the stuff that James Fox released with Matthew Brown, Dylan Borland, David Grush, right? We covered that in a video already. And Eric Burleson, right? All of that. That's essentially it. That's why all these whistleblowers are coming forward, trying to get some movement going for Trump, because again, his power is finite. All right, let me know what you think down in the comments. Let's move on to the next clip.
They had read my AFRL teleportation physics study. And in chapter 5, I talked about the DIA analysis of China's experiments with gifted psychic children, where they were able to physically teleport animate and inanimate objects from
I've heard about this,
laboratory sealed test tubes that were locked away in one vault, like a skiff vault. They had high-speed cameras taking data, other sensors taking data, and the cameras.
Do you think that was real? You think those were real?
Those were real.
Wow.
Hal Puthoff went out there to meet those scientists under DIA sponsorship to find out if those are real. And so the DIA wrote extensive reports on it. So they basically published in their peer review literature, and Hal was able to convince himself that these were not charlatans. They were not playing magic tricks and hoaxing everybody. This was a legitimate peer-reviewed journal. It wasn't low class. It wasn't marginal. It was high class, and it was funded by their aerospace, by the People's Liberation Army's Aerospace Institute and Aerospace Medicine Institute. So you don't get funding for that on junk.
Right.
Okay. So because even they have standards, scientific standards. So basically, you see the contents of the test tubes vanish and reappear anywhere from a few feet away in a vault, in another vault that's sealed, in another sealed test tube-like container or flask in that other skiff vault, and the cameras and sensors are in there are observing it appear inside that sealed container.
Wow.
And then they separated them further and further, and then they got to the AM and FM microtransmitters. And that was very interesting because at the time they would disappear, the radio receivers, because these transmitters were receiving a signal, the laboratory receivers in the lab were detecting the signals getting weaker and weaker and weaker in correlation with what you would expect from a transmitter that's moving away from the receiver, and it's far away with the 1/r² radio wave intensity drop-off. Field intensity drop-off that you would expect. So it's the 1/r² distance between the transmitter and receiver of the intensity of the radio wave falling. And so at that minute, it went off at a far distance. And then they started detecting it getting stronger as it materialized into the other sealed chamber and materializing into the sealed container that was contained in the sealed vault chamber. And so they did some calculations. Their best estimate was that these kids were teleporting these things through other space dimensions.
Wow.
That's the only thing they could conclude.
That's so fascinating.
What? Eric Davis, it sounds like a guy you meet at like a neighborhood barbecue maybe he's a neighbor you've seen here and there. You never really talked to him before. And now you're sitting at a barbecue, eating some potato salad and fried chicken. And then you just have this guy across from you telling you this story about these kids in China who can teleport. It's just like, that's what the story sounds like. Because he's all over the place with how he describes things. That's what it seems so frantic, the story, right? Like he's got to get it out, and he just doesn't even know how to describe things, right? It's just all over the place. You would think if that was a true story and he's told that multiple times, he'd have that better laid out. Anyway, But bottom line, regardless of how Eric Davis tells the story, is the story true? Who knows? He's saying it is. That's quite impressive. If it is, why wouldn't there be more evidence, more experiments? Why didn't America come back and start doing these experiments, right? Like, I don't know. But if that is true, that's quite remarkable, right? To have these things materialize. I don't know. Is that possible? I heard a lot of things about telekinesis and this is even something else, teleportation, right? Like you're able to move things like that, like crazy. I heard a lot of people talk about it. So I don't know. If this is true, yes, very interesting. Hal Puthoff went and convinced himself they weren't charlatans, first of all, which is interesting. So I don't know, where are the reports? Why hasn't this been repeated? I don't know. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on to the next clip.
CIA
Defense
scientist,
Intelligence
yeah.
Agency, whose career.
And he, by his own admission, apparently had some other contractor, or was it intelligence agency, had the craft that he allegedly breached the hull.
That was the other intelligence agency.
Okay. So he eventually revealed in a weaponized interview that he apparently
that they opened it up.
Yes.
He was there when they managed to open it up, and he was invited to go inside and look around. And he didn't describe what he saw, but he described what was missing and what they didn't see, I should say. And
what they didn't see was like any traditional kinds of controls, right?
No, it was, they didn't, were not able to identify any meaningful power and propulsion system.
Okay.
But what this is you're officially allowed to tell us that the United States government has in its possession a craft of unknown origin, and you were able to access the inside. Is that correct?
The wording that you read is correct. You're going beyond the wording.
No, I'm not. I'm asking you, did that meeting happen? And is that true? And it's true.
Yes.
Okay, so you're telling us, you told us, because you were allowed to tell us, that our government has a UFO in its possession and has been able to access the inside of it, right?
Yes.
And with the propulsion system, you have to have a power system, and you have to have a power system to power the craft overall, not just the propulsion.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't identify any such thing inside.
The famous Lacatski story of breaching the hull and getting inside and couldn't identify anything inside this unknown craft. First of all, I'm not even sure if this event ever actually happened. But second of all, if it did, it still doesn't say aliens, because they just say unknown origin. So that could still be another country, right? And they said Eric Davis says a couple things that are a little interesting here. I don't know if they contradict themselves. Let me know what you think in the comments about what I'm about to say. Eric Davis says they found no meaningful signs of propulsion or whatever. No meaningful, meaning they did see something, but they didn't think it meant anything, right? That was an interesting choice words. But then at the end, he's like, they didn't find anything. So which is it? Those are two different things. So I don't know. Again, so Lacatski's been inside this UFO. Where is it now? Right? And when did he get access to it? At what point? Right? Is this the same craft they were trying to get from Lockheed? Right? Why wouldn't he keep working on it? He was only allowed in there for one day. And then they were like, yeah, you got to get out. I mean, you know what I mean? How long did Lacatski work on this? And again, why is he not still with it? And why would he be able to talk about it? All just so strange. So there's a strong possibility that this story is true. The problem is it's not about UFOs. It's not about alien spacecraft, but it's true. They can use a lot of ambiguous terms that technically they're not lying, right? Unknown origin. That doesn't mean aliens, right? No meaningful signs of propulsion. That doesn't mean aliens, right? They leave things very ambiguous. So I don't know. Weird story. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on to the next clip. Ross Coulthart.
Ross, have you heard of those descriptions before? What do you make of what he's saying?
I can tell you I have huge respect for Dr. Eric Davis and David Grush, both of whom have said they've seen evidence in the form of videos, photographs, imagery, documents. And I've spoken to other people inside the Legacy program who speak to me confidentially, who say that, yes, they're aware of 4 species of non-human beings: greys, mantids, reptilians, and Nordics. And frankly, I think if that's true, if that really is the case, why is the government concealing it? What possible, plausible, reasonable reason could there be for the president, not with a flick of his hand, signing a form saying the public can be told the truth? His good friend, Dr. Phil McGraw, Dr. Phil, has basically come out and said that he thinks it's outrageous that the public isn't being told the truth. And I know some of the people that Dr. Phil's talking to, and I know he's getting very, very well informed, and he's very much in the ear of President Trump. As David Grush said, Katie, this is a great moment for the president. This could be the legacy for the president.
All right, so this is interesting. So Dr. Eric Davis has specifically spoken about 4 types of alien species that Ross Coulthart just said that, right? Which he's sort of confirming. I guess he's heard the same thing, and David Grush has also talked about seeing bodies, right? They've both seen photographic and video evidence that these things are real. And at minimum, there's 4 species. I mean, how are there so many species interacting with Earth? And that's just minimum 4? There could be more? Like, what are we... It's like Earth is the Cheers of the solar system, right? So I don't know. That just sounds so strange to me. But regardless, again, this is just a plea to Trump, right? They're really getting in the ear of Trump to come out and make a statement, say something. I don't have a problem with Trump saying something. I just hope he isn't pressured to say something without showing proof of it. Because if he's going to have to come out and say there's aliens, we're going to have to see some proof along with it. People are going to want to see that. Right? We can just start with a basic disclosure, but I don't know, whatever. At the end of the day, if this helps get it out, if I'm wrong and there are more, great, let's go. At the end of the day, they're just words. We're going to have to see some proof. All right, let me know what you think in the comments. Let's move on to the next clip and the final clip.
My name is Garry Nolan, and I'm a professor in the Department of Pathology at the Stanford University School of Medicine. Now, I need to say this up front. Although I'm a member of the White House UAP Science Advisory Council, advising the FBI, ODNI, the White House itself, and other groups within the government, I'm speaking here now personally and not on behalf of any group. First, I'm proud to have been involved in this area over the last 15 years, using my experience in cancer immunology to serve our country and military. Second, I'm also proud to have advised members of our government, even in a limited manner, over the years to advise them on how to bring rigorous science to the study of alleged UAP and non-human intelligence. Through the efforts of many, least of all me, we together have reached a critical juncture. I therefore want to applaud the White House and President Trump for opening the door to scientific progress in this area. It's truly a momentous turning point in history, but it requires further action for that potential to come to fruition. The truth is, the UAP are not yet a problem that science can solve. Why? Because science needs data, and no one has been given access to the data that hides behind redacted videos and security clearances that even our government has openly admitted having on anomalous objects. We, as a country, and I, as a scientist, am being denied access to the data or materials on potential evidence for non-human intelligence. That's extraordinary. Without addressing these barriers, as created by bureaucratic state and those groups or individuals who seek to block and obfuscate, the matter will continue to evade oversight from Congress and even the president. You are paying for something that you aren't told anything about. Efforts to gain access to the needed data remain purely cosmetic, lacking the substance or the power needed to get at the core of this pressing issue. Okay then, so what's the path to a goal. Well, remember David Grush and many other of the whistleblowers who have come forward? David Grush, for instance, took an oath before Congress and, with confidence and extraordinary courage, testified under oath that he was tasked by the government and subsequently discovered that programs existed within the government and certain Department of War contractors that were hidden from public view and that had been set up for reverse engineering or examination of advanced craft whose origins was from some form of non-human intelligence, allegedly. I mean, that's an extraordinary statement to make under oath and at risk of your career and, frankly, going to jail. So, one path forward might be David Grush and whistleblowers like him who have the requisite institutional knowledge might be tasked to develop a coherent plan and to run the operations that overcome the obstacles, break down the doors. Why not give them the authority they need to break down the walls and finally get to the truth of this matter? They can help the administration develop a plan that fulfills President Trump's vision for transparency. After all, they were the ones who came forward with the information in the first place. Why filter it through secondary parties? David Grush and the other whistleblowers understand intimately how to navigate the path created by the bureaucratic deep state actors who serve only themselves rather than the nation. Because brave men and women witnessed the problems firsthand, they should be the people directly tasked to bring this problem forward. I'm appealing directly to President Trump. Sir, please bring back David Grush and other competent whistleblowers into government service at a level where they can support you and give them the necessary authority to bring this matter to whatever conclusion the evidence deserves as analyzed by science and the people. History will remember those who have the courage to act. It's time to be bold. Thank you for listening.
All right, so there you have it. That is Dr. Garry Nolan. Again, just with a plea. There's a lot of these recent pleas put out by James Fox. It's the same thing. Dr. Garry Nolan now showing support for all the whistleblowers, and people should come forward. They're waving NDAs, come forward. Tell us what you know. Let's protect whistleblowers, immunity. There's a lot happening right now to see if Trump can do something or someone close to Trump. There's just a lot going on. I just think Trump is just putting this at the bottom. But boy, they're trying hard with a few videos that are getting a little bit of movement on social media. It's just not enough to make a difference for Trump. I'm sorry, these weird little videos, not weird little videos, I shouldn't say that. These videos are just not helping. They're doing their best. I just don't think it's going to make any sort of movement. To get the real sort of viral attention you would want to get this on social media so that Trump sees it, it would help above all these testimonies, all these people putting out videos, all these whistleblowers putting out videos. Proof. Just show some proof. A little something. That would get things moving. Some proof. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. All right, y'all. Again, timestamps, check everything out, skip around. We'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.